Good afternoon. Good afternoon, and welcome to this finished vehicle logistics collaboration session. Today's session, we'll hear about how the industry has come together to drive digitalization in vehicle logistics, and of course, developing standards around that as well. As vehicle logistics faces ever greater product complexity, new regulations, customer expectations, meeting the demands of the new reality will require a cooperative strategy to and greater industry collaboration. So today I'm going to be joined by a great panel of collaborators who have come together to actually execute on an exciting project within the finished vehicle logistics sector. So today I'm joined by Robert Cameron, who's chairman of Odette International, and also head of Department for Production Logistics at the German Association of Automotive Industry, the VDA. Also joined by Mike Sturgeon, who's executive director for ECG, and Hervé Moulin, who's alliance project leader for telematics finished vehicle logistics at Renault-Nissan-Mitsubishi. Welcome all, gentlemen, to the session. To kick things off, I'd like to ask Robert to just give us an overview of the project and of course how you started off coming together on this exciting project. Thanks very much, Robert.
Thank you very much, Neemish. Thanks for the introduction and the invitation. Maybe we can pull up the slide. So, hello, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to give you a quick overview into how this cooperation between ECG and Odette started, and what our intentions were, and what direction this project that we're all very proud of has taken us. On the next slide, you will kind of see the way things have built up. As Neemish said, I am the current chairman of Odette International, which is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to create best practices and recommendations for standard processes in the supply chain and also in EDI in Europe. In my day job, I'm head of the VDA Production and Logistics Department, and we do similar things in the fields of production and logistics within Germany. We have a core competency, which is the establishment of these pre-competitive best practices. And we have both Odette International and the VDA created numerous recommendations, which we have published and which are basically available for free to any interested user. We've been very busy in the field of inbound logistics, and we have done much to digitalize the inbound logistics supply chain. However, although we have had some activities in the past with creating standard messages for outbound logistics for the distribution chain of finished vehicles, the distribution chain is not as digital as the inbound chain and not as digital as we would like it to be. Our long-term objective is to have a completely digitalized logistics flow, starting at the tier N supplier, going over to the tier 1 supplier, the OEM, and the entire distribution chain down to the dealer. We want to be able to have a digital twin of this entire logistics chain and to be able to locate and pinpoint each and every position, process, and change of status of a part and a vehicle. To do that, we have to take into account both sides, the inbound and the outbound. And that's why a project was started and initiated by our top VDA committee, the logistics committee, which organizes the heads of logistics of the largest OEMs and first tier suppliers in Germany. And the trigger for that was basically that cars have changed. The technology for cars have changed. Cars are networked, connected, smart. They have the ability to analyze their own status. And that was the trigger for us to say, how can we use these new abilities that vehicles have to digitalize the supply chain and get more positioning and status data on vehicles in the outbound chain? We started this project and introduced it to Odette. It was really early on, it was really clear that we couldn't do this as a national German project. And we introduced it to our European partners on the Odette level and found a lot of interest in doing this. And that's why we made a European project on it. It could have been a OEM-centered project. However, we were very, very lucky that ECG was working on a similar project in parallel on the from the view of the logistics service providers and the yard service providers. We connected, also thanks to the initiative of Mike Sturgeon, who was very eager about this project and wanted to get a global and holistic solution to this. And we got together, we got many European OEMs together, we got many service providers together, and we started a joint project which took, I would say, 2.5 to 3 years. It was very complex. We created a large set of messages. We talked about processes. We tried to keep the recommendation as open as possible because, of course, there are national differences and company differences between the processes. And we got a very good recommendation together, which is being implemented by the OEMs and service providers as we speak. But of course, we don't want to rest on our laurels. Our next step would be is to take this very digital outbound chain and to try to connect it with the inbound chain, distribution and supply chain. And I think that is going to be one of the major tasks that we all in the standardization community will have in the next few years. And I think now Mike can say something out of his perspective after I've taken up so much time and bored you.
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, that's an excellent summary of how we started and where we got to. So I won't talk about that. I wanted to just say something about standardization and ECG's quite long-term goals in terms of that. Richard, I don't know if you can show my slide now, whether it's going to build properly, but okay. So this is ECG's roadmap. I'm not going to take you through that through it in detail, but you can see the 5 boxes there, which are effectively the 5 pillars of our mission statement. And bottom right is standardization, which hopefully, if you click again, Richard, that will become the next slide. Thank you. So standardization is probably the most important of the elements of our mission statement. It's the thing that we've been working on longest and hardest. We've worked with the OEMs for many years in things like our in our quality working group, I should say, which produces our operations quality manual, for example. And you can see there we have a number of industry working groups. But for me, this is the best example to date in digitalization. And even within digitalization, if you go to the next slide, Richard, it's one of several topics that we've been working on. But this for me is really the best example of collaboration so far in the finished vehicle logistics sector. It's something we've been talking about, those of us who've been in this industry a while, been talking about for many, many years, and it's been achieved in small ways before. But I think this is probably the first, in Europe at least, the first example of really getting the whole industry, OEMs and LSPs, around the table on a project and delivering something that everybody is very satisfied with the outcome of the project. So onwards and upwards. So from ECG's point of view, great example, great base to build on. In fact, we'll be meeting with Robert and his colleagues and the rest of the team soon to discuss what's next on the agenda, what else we can do. And as you can see from this, there are many other topics outside of digitalization that we're also working with. But from ECG's point of view, we very much hope that this is a model for future industry collaboration and development, so that we can work together on standardization of all sorts of issues that will benefit everybody in terms of efficiency and ultimately financially, of course. So I think that's really what I wanted to say from ECG's point of view. And next up is Hervé Moulin, I think, from the OEM's point of view.
Thank you, Mike, and welcome, Hervé.
Yes. Hello. Then I'm going to speak about these standards from an OEM point of view. And if you can please show my slide. Thank you. Well, from an OEM point of view, the main advantage of these standards lies in the reduction of costs and delays of getting compatible with a new customer or supplier. A key issue to consider on that matter is that getting compatible doesn't provide any added value for anyone. None of the partners comes better out of it. And at a time when IT resources are scarce and precious, they must be allocated to progress and not mere compatibility. But it also gives us a clear framework for our new IT developments. With these standards, we know where we are going, what must eventually get in and out of our IT systems. And this is precious for new development, of course. Besides, the standards also exist both in EDI and XML. It was a very smart move from the working group, I think, because therefore, such companies who don't have an EDI interface can still adopt the standards easily, thanks to the XML. And that's a major progress for us OEM. The cost and difficulty of getting IT compatible, when you compare it to the volumes at stake, could prevent us sometimes from selecting potential suppliers in our panel, because they were too small and they would have had too much difficulties in getting compatible with our big computer programs. So reducing that drawback through standardization will give a chance to more LSPs to get business from more OEMs. And there's a multiplying effect in that. Every OEM who follows the standards will bring his lot of suppliers, who will have to get compatible, of course. And if several OEMs join in, considering the relatively small number of players in the sector, it won't be long, I think, before most suppliers are compatible, which should in turn decide the remaining OEMs to follow the same path. So it will be beneficial for the whole industry, I think. And last but not least, we OEMs included in the standards the messages we deem necessary for the next few years, such as the messages coming from connected vehicles and connected trucks. So this prepares us well for the future. That's basically what I had to say from an OEM point of view.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Hervé. That's great to hear how you've all come together, and of course, there's clear benefits there for everybody in the value chain, right? I think that's the important part of this, right? And of course, for you as OEMs, being able to work together to develop these standards, and have the LSPs all working on the same standard, that whole conversation that we've had for many years at various automotive logistics conferences about transparency, visibility, and all those kind of elements starts to become a reality, right? So that's great to hear. I'd just like to I know we've got a kind of a poll here where we can gauge kind of whether the industry is willing to adapt to these standards and digitalization. So let me just kick that off and give that a few couple of minutes. You should all be able to see that now. So you'll need to vote and participate to be able to see the results there, and I'll show them there in a short while. But we're getting some good responses so far. I'll just leave it there for just a couple of minutes, and I think overall, I think it's a clear yes. So I'm just going to view the results now. So yeah, that's a clear yes. Everybody's willing to move forward with that. So that's good news. Let me just kind of put this into the current situation. So of course we've had challenges around with of course the COVID virus and the impacts that's had on the automotive industry. Do you think the situation is a catalyst for change, and or is it going to kind of hinder progress? Let me start with you, Hervé, to get your perspective from an OEM.
The COVID crisis is clearly to be taken as an opportunity, because it puts a lot of things at stake, and we don't have any choice but to adapt. And it will show our capacity to adapt to the new situation. And specifically for the Renault-Nissan Alliance, who's got new perspectives under a new management. It's very important for us to get adapted to the world as it is going to be, and to take the advantage of this crisis to rethink our processes.
Yeah, thanks very much. I think, yeah, certainly an opportunity there. And from let me come to Robert first and get the kind of the VDA or the Odette perspective on that. What are you hearing from your members and across the board there?
Well, the first feedback during the COVID crisis, which we received, is that we were actually busier than before with all of our EDI and digitalization projects. The thing is, we needed information, and we needed information quickly. The entire COVID crisis, we were happy that the supply chains worked independently of national lockdowns, but we always needed quick information as to where cars were, as to where trucks and lorries were, as to where parts were, and we needed this digitalized, and we needed this in real time, because we had stocks of 0.5 days to 1.5 days, which would have been depleted and stopped the production at any time. So we are creating a strategy at the VDA now on production and logistics level, a digital data strategy, which we are going to pursue until 2030, which includes all of these points. So I believe it is a catalyst, and it is a necessity. We will, unfortunately, we will have situations like this in the future, maybe not as dramatic as the first time, because we've learned our lessons, but they will come again. We will have to reduce the workforce on the ground and send them to home office, and we will need solutions where we can keep our processes running, even with less boots on the ground, and those processes will be digital.
Sure, thank you very much. And Mike, from your perspective, of course, you work with the OEMs and with the service providers, and of course, a big portion of your members are the logistics service providers in this space. What are you hearing from them at the moment, and what are you seeing from the industry right now? Did you hear me okay, Mike? I think Mike's lost his sound there for a little bit. So,
Neemish, if you're talking to me, I can hear the other two perfectly, but I can't hear you at all.
Okay.
Well,
maybe
basically what he asked you, what was your perspective, since you're working with the OEMs and the 3PLs, what they give you on the issue of digitalization, if we need to increase our activities or if there was a problem?
I certainly don't think there was a problem. I think, but I think it's clear that there's going to be more and more activities falling under the general digitalization heading going forward, and so I would see more and more need for this, especially in digitalization, because perhaps it's easier to standardize things in digitalization maybe than in other areas anyway, and I think the wins are bigger potentially.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, Mike. Let's hopefully you can start to hear me again there. I think it's an important situation to kind of look at how we then kind of move forward with more of these opportunities for collaboration, right? So what are the other kind of key areas where you're looking to collaborate and come together with the industry? And maybe I'll talk to Robert about that first, and then maybe Hervé, you can join in, and if Mike heard the question, he can participate too.
Well, there's a lot of exchange that we have at the moment. I mean, the automotive industry is faced with the challenge of a multitude of propulsion systems that we have to integrate into logistics and production. And we are faced with the challenge that the demand for the different types of propulsion systems is very volatile, which means you cannot do a stable production planning. I'm going to produce 30% electric vehicles this week and 30% next week. It can be 10% this week and 50% next week, and that's how dramatic it is, which means we need a closer connection between the OEMs and the tier ones and the tier twos. We will need different organizations in production and logistics. And we will also have to use the information that our machinery and our equipment give us. We have intelligent production machines. We have autonomous guided vehicles. We have automated maintenance. And all this information has to be used to flatten the production curve and to integrate this volatile environment into the process, which means we're going to see closer cooperation with the machine producing industry. We'll see closer cooperation between OEMs and tier ones, even in the plants. We will see the stock levels change. So the question of bound capital is not going to be as severe as it was in the past. We're going to build up stock because we know we need it, and especially from suppliers which are in our region. Give you the example of Germany during the lockdown, China wasn't our problem. We had 6 weeks of material on the oceans. Italy was our problem. We had 0.5 days to 1 day of stock. So we're going to change that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's also then, how do you manage the demand curve there as well, right? And shifts, and of course, in line with kind of incentives around electric vehicles. What's the uptick on that, and how do you adjust production schedules and down the supply chain to adapt to those environments as well, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's bring Hervé into the conversation as well, and from your perspective, of course, being on the vehicle logistics side, where are the other opportunities that you see where you can collaborate with industries, whether it's OEM to OEM or with your service providers?
There are lots of different areas in which we can cooperate. Let me tell you about a couple. Yes, for instance, the vehicle labeling is something that we've never managed to standardize in the business, and one of the consequences is that we're still stuck with barcodes, and we put them at very random places in the cars, which is not optimized at all. So we are currently working with some other OEMs and LSPs about that. About standardization of the labels we put on the vehicles. It may seem stupid, but it can bring a lot of progress. And another issue is the key performance indicators. In fact, there are not 100 ways to move a car from the factory to the dealership, but there are 100 ways to and maybe more to do some KPIs about it. So that's what we also want to change by adopting standard KPIs for the main KPIs of the profession of the business. And our idea is that it will make the task of LSPs all the easier. It will make their task much easier, and since they will have less work to do the same KPIs in multiple forms, we can maybe extend the number of KPIs, but they would be standard ones. So we would have without more work, we would have a richer array of KPIs to draw progress from.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's always difficult, right? When you've got so many different KPIs and measurements that even contracts are built around as well, right?
Yes,
and sometimes
and
stringent ones.
and as far as I know, there hasn't been any consultation between the OEMs as to which KPIs and on what form they will require it from the LSPs. So it's a bit stupid, because in the end we will have the same, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's bring Mike back into the conversation as well, because this is clearly one that I'm glad you're back, and I'm glad you can hear me. Thank you. Let's get your thoughts on this, Mike. This conversation around KPIs and standardization of that is clearly an important one, particularly for the service providers, right?
Yes, I mean it's something that we still need to discuss around the table and make sure that it's something that's a priority for everybody, of course, and that's what we'll be doing later this month. I think the first one that Hervé mentioned, though, the issue of the barcode labels used in the supply chain is actually quite astonishing that we haven't managed to create a standard yet. I mean, there's 2D barcodes, 3D barcodes, RFID tags. Some people use 17-digit VIN numbers, some not. Some put them on the seats, some stick them in the windows, some in the windscreen. I mean, really, actually, it shouldn't be too difficult. I think that's something that could be a quick win for everybody. And there's one other thing that I mean, it's not on our agenda for this, but Hervé didn't mention a project which Renault started with one of our members, which is to create a standard for auditing vehicle compounds and terminals for connectivity, which is going to be increasingly important going forward, which is, and I think PSA as well were involved in supporting that, and we've published it. It's not got higher up the agenda so far, but it's there ready and waiting for the time when people actually start doing that on a regular basis. So hopefully by doing something early on before everybody decides to do their own thing, there's something there on the shelf that people can hopefully take and use when the time comes. So it's a lot easier to create a standard if you do it ahead of everybody creating their own way of doing things, because it then hopefully doesn't involve people having to change later on. They can simply take it and run with it.
Yeah, fantastic.
And we're not short of ideas anyway, that's for sure. We could keep this working group going for a very long time. I think there's always going to be something new that needs standardizing. That's clear.
Yeah, sure. Well, let's bring Hervé and Robert back into the conversation as well, because I think this is an important. Maybe we can talk about this for a few more minutes before we kind of before we wrap up there. I guess the question is, how do we continue to kind of use these digital tools to drive innovation within the automotive supply chain, right? And as we said, it's about KPIs, but then as technology advances and becomes easier to adapt to and implement, where are those opportunities, and where do you see those the ability to come together on them? I'll open it up to whoever wants to comment on that.
Well, there's a multitude of tools that we're talking about right now. The problem is getting them all integrated into the same system. We have it's not only the different standards that we have and the different languages or formats that we have. It is also the proprietary systems that everybody uses, which hinder us to get everything into one view, into one onlook to exchange information. We've had blockchain in the past. However, blockchain in logistics is a thing that may work, may not work. I haven't found a large case business case in my personal projects or industries that'll work. We have EPCIS as a database for events. We have other projects, But I think what we need right now is, and that's the way we're going, is a joint platform where we can exchange information independent of the tool. Somebody can go using blockchain, somebody can go using RFID, somebody can go using Wi-Fi or ultra wideband. We need to have a plug and connect kind of system where we can exchange information. And we are going there with data models, standard data models that can be implemented in different messages into XML, Edifact, or whatever. And I think we have to go into processes that way as well. There are activities going there. It has been very slow in the past because it's always difficult when you get into the proprietary area. Nobody wants to give up their business case. And nobody wants to give a part of their knowledge away. But I think with this crisis that we saw with COVID and with the direction with Industry 4.0 where everything is going, I think the necessity is becoming more clear that we have to become more open for collaboration.
Sure, absolutely. Hervé, what are your perspectives as an OEM?
Well, I'm going to come back to something Robert said before. It's the visibility of the supply chain in real time, and this is getting to expand among the OEMs, and now we will be able to have for the first time complete visibility through connected cars and connected trucks on the whole supply chain, and this will undoubtedly bring a lot of progress we don't even have an idea of currently. I think it's even difficult to plan exhaustively for what we are going to do with these new tools, because we still have to invent a lot of things that we will be able to achieve through these technologies. So I also think, like Robert, that it's all the more important since the distribution ways are getting less simple than before. There are lots and lots of new ways to distribute the car to the final customer, and so complete visibility will be a real asset to prepare for this new phase of the industry. So the Internet of Things, the connected cars, connected trucks. This is, I think, one of the main revolutions in our business for the years to come, and we will have many ways, as we said in Renault, to invent the life that goes with it.
Yeah, and that's an interesting conversation, I think. And with that comes standards as well, right? If everybody's developing their own connected cars and their own different platforms, how do you start to be able to collaborate? Maybe, Mike, is that something that you can have conversations with about the industry about?
We already, sorry, Mike, but we already integrated that in the standards.
Okay.
So in the standards we are just discussing, the exchange of data, the data exchanges regarding connected cars and connected trucks are already included.
Okay, perfect. Mike, anything else to add on that subject?
Nothing really. No, I think it's probably all been said, and I'm sorry, I've been struggling with the sound again here for some reason. So I didn't hear everything that Robert was saying, I'm afraid. But
we hear you perfectly well.
Yeah, good. Thank you. And I can hear you.
Talk a lot, say little, Mike, so you didn't miss anything.
But no, I think our role is really to facilitate and continue facilitating and bringing people together where we can to help drive these things and hopefully be some sort of kickstart in some way to doing that.
Fantastic. Well, it's been really interesting to hear you talk about the project. It's something that's clearly very valuable for the industry, across the board. Of course, there's more collaboration that needs to come. I think as you said, Robert, getting that visibility of the supply chain, is critical in terms of managing the risk and building resilience into the supply chain as well, right? Which is, of course, the order of the day, right? Whether you're in aftermarket, you're in finished vehicle logistics, or inbound,
Yes, I think it's no longer about resistance to be able to survive in our business. It's about resilience.
Yeah.
So we need to see everything that's going on, and be able to adapt quickly to these new changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's certainly the message that we're hearing. Having conversations, in the lead up to this event. Plus, as you'll hear this morning and throughout the course of the remainder of the event as well, that the key themes are emerging of the impacts and the future of automotive logistics and supply chain management, right? And equally so, many opportunities as well. Many opportunities for us to look at new ways of doing things and coming together, collaborating, forming standards, partnerships, etc. is definitely the way forward. Maybe this is also the time to push that message out. I'm sure you'd agree with that.
Yes,
most definitely.
Very good. Well, I think we've kind of overran timing wise a little bit, but that's great. So I'll thank you again for your participation. It was great to hear that project. There's, of course, you can read more about this on Automotive Logistics. There's some interesting interviews with Robert Cameron, with Mike Sturgeon, and of course with a good friend there, Hervé Moulin, and that'll give you some more detailed insights there as well. And of course, if you're interested in and have projects that you have in mind, then I'm sure all of the gentlemen here would be keen and willing to hear from you as well.
Yeah, Neemish, that's an
excellent
article, by the way. So, and I've already had quite some feedback from it. So I would encourage anybody who wants to know more about the project to go and find your article on the website and read it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Mike.
Yes.
Well, look, it's been a pleasure to have you. Hervé, do you have final words?
No, I just wanted to thank the ECG and the Odette and the VDA for their cooperation. I think it's a great achievement. As Mike said before, we've talked about it for a long time, and it really needed a magic combination between all our organizations to achieve the result. And this should give us hope for the future, that we could manage it, and that it's only the first step of a long cooperation, I hope.
I'm sure it is. Well, thank you very much again, gentlemen. For the audience, the next session will start at 2:30, and an interesting session there looking at supply chain innovation with Marco Weisser from Ineos and Wolfgang Lechmacher that'll be talking about supply chain innovation. So thanks again, everybody, and we'll look forward to seeing you very soon.